Greetings children. This lesson is for class 7 Cbse students. Before we moving on to the details of this lesson, I would like to ask you one question. The question is, what is the first invention of human beings? If you know the answer, comment it at the comment section, then watch the video. Yes, this lesson is about fire. The first invention of human beings. When he saw rocks falling down from mountains, and when it rubbed the mountain surfaces, it produced the fire, and it gave him the idea to rub two stones together and produce fire. That was the turning point of human life. Human started civilization from this point of discovery. And after that, his life was full of discoveries, and even today he continues with it. Now let us move on to the lesson. Look at this. Fire, friend and foe. Foe means enemy. At the same time, it is friend and foe. The early man did not know what fire was, but he must have seen the damage it could cause. He must have watched lightning and volcanoes long before he began to use fire himself. Fire was powerful and dangerous, and he was frightened. So this was the history of fire. The early man could have seen fire at the time of lightning and volcanoes before he started using them. And this fire was powerful and dangerous. So he frightened. The fire remained an unattainable force in the early human's mind. Come to the next part. Fire may have puzzled early man. No doubt it could have puzzled. Puzzled means confused a lot the early man. But we now know that fire is the result of a chemical reaction. But now we live in the modern era. We know that how this fire is formed. It is the result of a chemical reaction. When the oxygen in the air combines with carbon and hydrogen in a fuel, a chemical reaction takes place. This is the reason behind fire. When oxygen in the air combines with carbon and hydrogen in a fuel, naturally a chemical reaction will take place. Energy in the form of heat and light. So when fire is created, two forms of energies that formed. One is heat and the other is light, is released in the process. This is what we call fire. Three things are needed to make fire: fuel, oxygen and heat. So the basic knowledge about fire is, to create a fire we need three things. One is a fuel, next oxygen, and third element is heat. Wood, coal, cooking gas and petrol are some examples of fuel. We need fuel. These are fuels. Oxygen comes from the air. So oxygen is there in the air. And that is why when you blow on a smoldering paper, what is smoldering paper? A burning slowly without a flame. Look at the picture. This is a smoldering paper. It often bursts into flame. When you blow air on a smoldering paper, it bursts into flames. The third thing needed to make fire is heat. So, a fuel, oxygen, and heat. These three things are essential to make fire. Fuel and oxygen do not make fire by themselves. Fuel and oxygen, because we can see fuel and oxygen all around us, but they don't create any fire. A third agent is needed there. Or else a newspaper or a stick lying in the open would catch fire on its own. Otherwise, everything that seen around us get fire. The presence of oxygen and any fuel do not create any fire. To burn a piece of paper or wood, we heat it before it catches fire. So heat, the energy of heat is essential to make a thing catch fire. We generally do it with a lighted match. We usually fire a thing with a lighted match. Every fuel has a particular temperature at which it begins to burn. So every fuel has a particular temperature is needed to catch fire. This temperature is called the flash point. So one important question will come here. What is flash point? The minimum temperature required to begin to burn a fuel, that is flash point, or kindling temperature of the fuel. It is called flash point or kindling temperature of the fuel. Come to the next paragraph. It is sometimes said that fire is a good servant but a bad master. Look at the quotation. A good servant but a bad master. If you control it, you can use it very brilliantly for many uses. And if you let loose the control over fire, then you can't get it into control. It only means that fire is very useful as long as it is kept under control. That is what the phrase a good servant and a bad master means. If you put fire under control, you can use it for many purposes. For instance means for example, we use it to cook our food. Yes, as human, we cook the food and eat. For cooking, heat is essential. Warm our homes in winter. In winter areas, we warm our homes with this fire and to generate electricity. Sometimes we generate electricity with this fire. Generate here means produce. But on the other hand, if fire gets out of control, it can be very dangerous. But if it goes out of control, it can be very dangerous. It will burn everything. Each year, thousands of homes and shops are damaged by fire. We learn from our medias that each year thousands of homes and shops are burned in fire. Vast areas of forest are also destroyed. Last year also, in the Amazon forest, thousands of acres of forest we have lost because of fire, and hundreds of people are killed or injured. Many people around the world died of fire, or sometimes they injured. Come to the last paragraph of this page. Just as three things are needed to start a fire, there are three main ways in which a fire can be put out. Put out means to extinguish. Just as three things are needed to start a fire, in the same way, a fire can be put out with that three things. In each, one of the three things needed for burning is taken away. That is, one of the needed things for burning, it should be taken away. It should be removed. Then fire can be controlled. For example, we can take away the fuel. If you take away the fuel, the fire will stop. If the fire has no fuel to feed on, no burning can take place. If no fuel is there, then no burning can take place. Take for example your log stove. If you remove the wooden logs, then the fire will stop. We often let a fire die out simply by not adding more fuel to it. If we don't add more fuel to a fire, the fire will naturally diminish or come to an end. The second way of putting out a fire is to prevent oxygen from reaching it. Second way is prevent the flow of oxygen into the fire. That is the second way. No supply of oxygen means no fire. If oxygen is not reached at the fire, it will not burn. It will stop. Small fires can be put out or smothered with a damp blanket or sack. So, small fires can be put out. It can be extinguished smothered with a damp blanket. If we covered it with suffocate from lack of air, that is smothered. If we quickly cover it with a damp blanket or sack, we can stop it. For example, a burning gas cylinder can be put out to the fire by throwing a damp sack or blanket over it. This stops oxygen reaching the burning material. So when we do this, when we throw a damp blanket or sack over a burning material, how does the fire stop? Because the oxygen flow will be blocked. It does not allow oxygen to reach the burning material. The third way of putting out a fire is to remove the heat. Third way is remove the heat. If the temperature can be brought down below the flash point. So we know one fact that for burning, a flash point temperature is necessary. A kindling temperature is necessary for each and every fuel. If we brought that temperature down, we can stop the firing. The fuel stops burning. You blow on a burning matchstick or a candle to put it out. That is why when you blow at a burning match or a candle, and it will stop immediately. In doing so, you remove the hot air around the flame, bringing down its temperature below the flash point. So when you blow, what you do? You remove the air around the flame, then bringing down the temperature below the flash point, and the candle goes out. Then the candle will stop its burning. Sometimes water is sprayed on a fire. Sometimes we spray water on a fire. It absorbs heat from the burning fuel and lowers the temperature. Why we spray or pour water on a fire? Because it absorbs heat from the burning fuel and lowers the temperature. When the temperature lowers to the flash point, the fire will extinguish. The blanket of water also cuts off the supply of oxygen. Another benefit of pouring water is the blanket of water over the fuel that stop the supply of oxygen, and the fire is extinguished. In this manner, fire can be extinguished. Next paragraph. Some fires cannot be put out with water, but some fire is there. It cannot be put out with the help of water. If water is sprayed onto an oil fire, the oil will float to the top of the water and continue to burn. For example, a fire in an oil well or oil tank, pouring water is not good because the density of oil and water are different. When water is poured into it, water will go down and oil will come up, and again burning will continue. This can be very dangerous because water can flow quickly, carrying the burning oil with it and spreading the fire. Sometimes it causes spread of the fire because when we pour water, water started flowing, and when it flows, the burning oil float at the top of that water, and it takes the fire into other places. That's dangerous. Water should also not be used on fires caused by electrical appliances. Second fire incident where we don't use water is electrical appliances. Fire in electrical appliances. This person spraying water might receive an electric shock and be killed. The first danger behind it is the person spraying water might receive an electric shock. That is the first danger. A carbon dioxide extinguisher is the best thing to fight an electric fire. So you must remember one thing, that whenever you see an electric fire, you should remember this. The best way to extinguish that fire is using carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is the best extinguisher in electric fires. We spend millions of rupees each year in fighting fires, and we spend more trying to find new ways to preventing fires from happening and getting out of control. Around the world, the humans spend a lot of money to prevent this fire, yet it happens. On the whole, we have learned rather well to control fire and put it good use in our everyday life. On the whole, we know the methods and techniques to control the fire and put it to good use in our everyday life. Long ago, there were no firemen. When fire broke out, everybody became a firefighter. In early times, there were no firefighters or firemen to extinguish fire incidents. People formed human chains. They still do if required. In some places, even still, people do this. Because in emergency, we have to do this. And passed buckets of water from a well or a pond to the blaze. They immediately form a human chain and take out all the vessels available with them and pass water from a well or a river or a pond over the fire. Now there are laws about building constructions which ensure that space is left between buildings to reduce fire risk. Now the building rules are changed. Construction rules are changed. The municipalities and authorities, they ensure that space is left between buildings to reduce the fire risk from one building to another. The possibility of spreading fire should be controlled through living spaces. Every new building, especially a public place, must ensure observance of fire prevention norms. Fire prevention norms should be observed in the new buildings, especially the building is for general public use, like auditoriums, film theaters, shops, wherever that public go and engage in activities. Such places are known as public places. So the public building should be ensured observance of prevention of fire norms. Bands of firefighting workers with special equipment known as fire brigades. Look at the picture. Some fire brigades are there to put out fires. Now the trained people are there. They are called fire brigades. Firefighters are highly trained people. They are also called firefighters. They are highly trained people. They possess many skills. They cut off electricity supply. They are trained for how to control, how to extinguish fire in an accident. First of all, they will cut off electric supply, knock down dangerous walls. Then they immediately knock down any dangerous walls around there. Then spray water and other materials to bring fire under control. Then they started spraying water to bring fire under control. They are also trained in first aid. These people are also given training to give people first aid treatment so that they can help people suffering from burns and from effects of smoke. So they know how to treat, how to give first aid to people who are suffering from burns and effects of smoke. The last paragraph of the lesson is, the discovery of fire and its uses helped early man to cope with nature better than gradually adopt a settled mode of life. Fire is still worshipped in many parts of the world. Fire is indeed a friend. As we know, it can be a dangerous enemy once it gets out of control. This is the fact about fire. The discovery of fire and its uses helped early man to cope with nature. So, the discovery of fire helped the early man to cope with nature better and gradually adopt a settled mode of life. He burned many places and created space for his permanent settlement Fire is still worshipped in many parts of the world. Even now, fire is worshipped in many parts of the world, even in India. Many places we know fire is something holy. Fire is indeed a friend. Really, this fire is our friend. As we know, it can be dangerous, but it can be dangerous enemy. Once it gets out of control, if it goes out of our control, it can be our enemy. This is simple lesson. You read the text very clearly, and once again you watch this video, then you can understand it very clearly. In the next video we will solve the exercise session. Goodbye.